Welcome to the 1 to 11 podcast. This is the premiere podcast for two overweight men from Northamptonshire creating squads of players based on a theme.
This is the number 1 to 11 creating podcast in East Midlands that we are aware of.
Yeah. In the NN postcode, there is no finer podcast that we're aware of providing this content, building squads based on a theme. In all seriousness, this is a passion project for myself, Paul, and my brother John, where during the coronavirus pandemic of 2020, we thought back to simpler times where we used to go on long car journeys, like when we used to go and watch Leeds United in the South Stand. And with that, we would create squads on the way, think of the best Champions League, the best players you saw in the Champions League. And I think the one thing I really enjoy doing this is that this isn't us saying categorically, this is the best team of all time. Our opinion is fact.
No, it's our favourite rather than the best. So
yeah,
that's the difference, isn't it?
It's based on us giving a rationale for a player we love on a topic we love, and it's just thinking back to a time of football meaning so much more to us than it currently does.
Yeah,
when football was slightly less commercial, when I'm talking about the golden days of Football Italia on a Saturday morning, I'm talking about the Premier League years and this amazing elite conveyor belt of English strikers we had. And you think about it in terms of Shearer, Sheringham, Ferdinand, Cole, Collymore, Dublin, Owen.
Yeah.
Just these amazing players. And, we think back to that time. And I think one of the things that if you are the avid listener, so thank you, Scott, for being that avid listener, you get to a point of seeing that we have a theme throughout this podcast. And I think today we've got the violin playing really heavily for this theme. It's players that it's the unreached potential. And this is an unreached potential which is completely out of their control.
Yeah.
So these are 1 to 11, us creating, on our opinion, a team of injury prone players who could have reached a higher height if it wasn't for their ability to get injured. And the key thing about this podcast and the key thing about this as a kind of a passion project is we welcome your opinion. If you're sat listening to this or watching this on our YouTube channel, wondering how does that man keep his beard so wonderfully shaped and groomed? How does that other man have such wondrous hair? You're sat there watching us or listening to us going, how could you not put this person in? We have lots of outlets where you can get in touch with us through our Twitter account, which is John.
The 1 to 11 pod.
Yes. So we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and we welcome your opinion through Apple reviews. So if you want to leave us a 5-star review and then your opinion, that's fine.
Yeah.
But the important part is leave the 5-star review and we'll welcome the opinion.
Yes. But
in all seriousness, this is a more the merrier project, and we've picked the 1 to 11 of injury-prone players because I think this is something that we've taken we try unless the theme dictates, like last time where we did the Dutch, where you have to play 4-3-3 because it's the Dutch. We go with a 4-4-2, and I'm going to start us off today, John, with a goalkeeper. I'm going to start us off with Matt Murray.
Oh, okay. I bet you can guess who I've gone with.
I can't.
Chris Kirkland.
Chris Kirkland.
Chris Kirkland joined Liverpool as a youth player, effectively, from Coventry, wasn't it?
Just a prodigy.
a prodigy, the next England goalkeeper, effectively.
This was David Seaman, the heir to Seaman.
Exactly.
Gosh, that's a horrible thing to call someone. He's Harry Seaman.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, Chris Kirkland, and he just was injured throughout that time, and basically, because of that, never really got to. I'm just looking up now whether he actually ever played for Liverpool. 25 times in 5 years.
I think also you've got to understand that wasn't a Liverpool team where they were just waiting to slot him in. No. And that's part of the reason I didn't choose him, because that was a Liverpool team where you had Jerzy Dudek, Sander Westerveld before. He was brought in as a replacement for Westerveld, wasn't he? Weren't it? Sorry, him and Dudek were bought at the same time, weren't they?
Him and Dudek were bought at the same time. Dudek obviously being a bit older. And basically, Dudek made errors. In the first season, Dudek made errors. Kirkland was brought in to replace him. And he got injured. So Dudek was then brought immediately back. And basically, any time that he was at, so he had ankle injuries, broken fingers, he was 2004. He was due to be the first choice goalkeeper. He played. I was looking at 14 games, and then had a back injury, and never played for Liverpool again. Went on loan to
Sheffield Wednesday,
West Brom.
He ended up at Sheffield Wednesday at the end, didn't he?
He ended up, yeah. Not.
The reason I'll tell you why. Right, I agree with you. He would have had a better career if it weren't for the injuries. I picked Matt Murray over him because for me, Matt Murray is Chris Kirkland still got the opportunity. He had a good long run at Wigan. He got that England cap. Yeah, so Matt Murray, for those who don't know, the rationale behind Matt Murray is this guy at Wolverhampton Wanderers, the boyhood club, gets the longest contract ever given to a youth academy graduate, goes out on loan, tears his cruciate, comes back, goes out on loan to get his fitness back, tears his cruciate, then repairs, then comes back, gets ready, is the goalkeeper of the year, goalkeeper in the team of the year, has an amazing season. The team get promoted, and then he tears his cruciate.
Yeah.
And then when he's coming back, 23 minutes into his comeback game, he tears his cruciate.
Yeah.
And he was such a good talent, And for me, just injuries robbed that man of and possibly robbed a better team than Wolves at that time of that player.
Yeah, a England youth player.
Very much so.
And by the age of 29 was working for Sky Sports.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm happy to go with Matt Murray because Kirkland, I think, is a lazy choice, but I didn't think of Matt Murray is the honest answer.
Because I like him so much as a pundit.
Yeah, but it's horrible because he's such a lovely bloke.
And you think he probably would have been retiring this summer.
Yeah. God. Well, actually, probably not. He's a goalkeeper.
39. Yeah, I suppose Van der Sar was playing for Man United at 41, wasn't he?
He could be, he could quite happily be third choice at Wolves right now on a decent wage.
Oh, yeah, he could have been not playing for Man City as the English player for their Champions League registration.
Exactly, yeah. Doing a Rob Green and a Stuart Taylor.
Richard Wright.
Richard Wright. Yeah. So, but no, yeah.
I mean,
Chris
I may
Cullen,
have got the I may
Chris
have
Cullen got a
exaggerated them.
career. Matt Murray
Never did.
didn't. So no.
I may have exaggerated the number of cruciate injuries with Matt Murray, but this is a man who, every time it looked like he was on the brink of something, it went wrong.
Yeah.
So he was the choice for me, and I think, yeah, that's where I am with it, because he was great. And
yeah.
he should have played with them. He should have been playing for them in the Premier League.
No, it's fair enough. I wholeheartedly agree with that one. So Matt Murray is first choice.
So going to right back, we're going to agree. I'm sure we're going to agree.
We've mentioned him before, haven't we? I'm sure.
Absolutely. So that is Lee Dixon. No, it's not. No, it's not. No. Tony Hibbert. No. Micah Richards.
Micah Richards, yeah. Should have.
What could have been?
Yeah.
And again, it's a man retiring in the Midlands.
Yes. I mean, yeah, he was. It all started back in his Man City days, didn't it? When he came through, but then the body started to let him down. It was a shame because I thought he was going to be our Cafu.
Yeah, I agree with you. I saw him starting out on. I saw him being the English Sergio Ramos.
Yes, can play right back, centre back,
and was just an amazing player. Yeah. So the next one, I think we're going to genuinely. I think we're going to agree on the centre backs as well.
Yeah.
So the first one I'm going to put forward, Ledley King.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still got a career, but for me, what could have been? If you have Thierry Henry call you one of the toughest defenders you've ever played against, you've done all right in your career. But this is a man who could. I know we've spoken about it on a previous one. A man who couldn't train. He couldn't train to play the game. He just did a bit of time on an exercise bike because otherwise his knee would swell up. And then on Saturday or Sunday or Monday or Thursday for that Spurs team at that time, he'd be unplayable.
No, because he was still playing when they were in the Champions League. You know, those Bale years, he was still there. So having to play, basically, I think having to choose effectively between playing Wednesday or playing Sunday.
So there's a criteria for me for how they make this team. What I'd like you to do, John, is I'd like you to get your phone out.
Okay.
And I'd like you to just put into Google the word Ledley. And I'd like you to read out the second Google suggestion after Ledley King.
Ledley King knee.
That tells you that's a man who's had a history of injury problems, right?
Yeah.
But just
it's strange to Google a footballer and the first hit not being wife. Which
wow. Or arrest.
Yes. That's my American football podcast though. But yeah. Not to see wife is very strange. But he was a wonderful player. Could play centre back, played a sort of defensive midfield for Euro 2004, which was one of our better performances in a tournament. And it's a shame. It really is a shame because, it pains me because I don't like Tottenham at all. But he was class. Different class.
Yeah, I think he was just assured, and he was. Anyone would miss Sol Campbell, but you didn't miss Sol Campbell as much because you had him.
Yeah, a wonderful player.
Yeah.
So, shall I lead on the next one?
Please do.
Have you gone for Vincent Kompany?
No.
Who have you gone with?
Jonathan Woodgate.
Is this based on the potential that they lost due to their injuries, or just the amount of time they were injured?
I saw it as kind of the potential loss to being injured.
Okay.
And that's why I went. That's why every player I've picked so far has kind of gone on that. And that's why I went for Woodgate. All right, this is a man who got to a Champions League semi-final, got bought as a kind of Galactico.
Yeah.
And
his CV is impressive.
Played in the Champions League for 4 different teams.
But his CV should also say more than 8 England caps.
Yeah, this is a man who should have been giving Terry and Ferdinand a run for their money regularly.
Because mine's based on the amount of time they were injured rather than their lost potential. So I think that's we're going to find some different answers here, which is why I went with Vance & Company, because just the amount of time lost when. I mean, if he was fit, he'd still be playing for Manchester City rather than managing Anderlecht.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. If he had stayed fit, there is absolutely no way in hell Martin Demichelis would have gotten near that team.
Yeah, they've spent hundreds of millions of pounds trying to replace Vance & Company, and so far, the only one they've come close on is Laporte, but now they've got no one to play with Laporte, and Laporte is also injured a lot. So
yes, he is. Yeah, I'm going to use a feature we discussed previously. I'm going to use my one relent. I'm going to give you Vance & Company because I've kind of gone in one direction and thinking of the other part of this. He is someone who you can't argue he hasn't had a great career.
He's had a brilliant career. You know, he's captained the most dominant Premier League team, and also to finish a season.
And also, he was kind of at the Mansour project from start to fruition.
Well, he was before Mansour, wasn't he? He was bought by Sven Shinawatra. Sven bought him, but he didn't play much that first year because
he was injured. By Hamburg sold him for £6 million, wasn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, he's lost a lot of time when he could have been the dominant defender of our generation.
Do you know what? As I said before, I will use my relent card here, and I will. Yeah, I go with that.
Cool. Well, it's cool, but we are going to have some differing opinions now because of just how I've gone through it and you've gone through it.
The interpretation is different, yeah. So, left back, who have you gone for?
Luke Shaw.
I completely agree.
I'm a bit upset about how long it took me to remember Luke Shaw.
He was the first person on my team sheet.
Last on mine. And I think it's the indictment
I'm a United fan.
True.
So there's always a level of frustration that comes with Luke Shaw. And not at him, necessarily.
No, I think he's been poorly managed by one person in particular. But that's continued, I think, as well. I don't think Ole trusts him. But under Van Gaal, when he was
up until the point he broke his leg at PSV,
playing really well. It looked like he was going to be our replacement for Ashley Cole on an international level. He looked brilliant. and he's never. I mean, I don't know how long ago that leg break was. But I'm speaking, it must be 5 years.
Yeah, so Luke Shaw broke his leg on September the 16th, 2015.
So yeah, it's approaching 5 years, and he's never really recovered.
No, I think it's the other injuries that have come since this. So, you're looking at multiple, and the injuries he's having now are just, you're looking at a month out, just over, you're looking at 5 weeks out, and those add up. And those make you lose trust, and that's someone who, he was the reason Ashley Cole stopped playing for England.
Yeah, I remember an interview with Nigel Adkins on TalkSport back in the day, just after he'd moved to Man United, and it was all about because I think you forget how young he was when he joined Man United, and basically like Nigel Adkins,
he's 24.
Yeah, he's like his body isn't ready, when he joined Man United, because he's like, we didn't play him for whole games because he's just not fit enough. And unfortunately, I think because of the injuries, he's never occasional fits and starts where he looks a world beater.
Yeah,
but it's only flashes, and it's a shame because he should have been. If he could have added to his like match fitness, which I think it basically was, it was basically an 18-year-old, who wasn't really gearing up to be a footballer until late, so that once if they got that sorted, he'd have been a world beater. But unfortunately, he's not a flop.
No, he's not a flop, but
it's a regret.
He leads to a wider problem here, and something I'm probably going to talk more with the other players. A youth player comes through a youth academy, has 2 or 3 good games for the senior team, and he is the future of English football. He is going to be the best of this position in the world. And then the vultures start circling, and they move to a big club. Leave them in the oven for a bit longer.
Yeah,
they're not
that's
done.
It.
Luke Shaw's unanimous then. So, right mid. I'll give you mine. Darren Anderton.
See, I left the Premier League for this because
did you go for Santi Cazorla?
I didn't. I may mention him later. I like Darren Anderton. As I mentioned in previous podcasts, I'm currently watching U96.
And realising just how good he was.
Really brilliant.
The thing that made Darren Anderton for me was the final year or 2 he had at Bournemouth.
Yeah, in lower leagues, but still brilliant.
Yeah.
But I picked Marco Reus.
Right mid?
Yeah, because I thumbed him in.
And you're thumbing in a softie here, John.
If you're not going to play for like a 4-3-3 or like a 4-2-3-1, Marco Reus doesn't really fit in.
So you're thumbing in a softie here. No Reus.
But you have to admit he's lost some of the best years of his career to injury.
He's lost the World Cup winners medal to injury,
and that's why I put him in, because effectively, when you think about how good that Germany team were in 2014, like the team that beat Brazil 7-1, their most potent attacking threat was back in Germany.
Yeah.
Do you think Götze comes on in the second half and scores the winner if Royce is fit? No.
No,
Royce.
no. It's Draxler wouldn't have been on the plane.
Yeah.
So,
yes, I just.
do you know, I can give you Marco Royce, but do you know what? I'm gonna, because we've given him a love fest in the last episode. My left midfielder was Mark Overmars.
I had a Mark Overmars.
But
I couldn't pick between him and Robin, who we also mentioned in the Dutch episode.
I'm gonna go for Royce on the left mid because firstly, Royce is a left-sided midfielder.
Yeah.
Are you gonna give me Darren Anderson? The man's nickname was Sick Note.
Okay. If you give me Royce, I'll give you Anderson.
All right, that's a fair trade. That's a fair deal. That's a deal.
Yeah. A wonderful player, but was always injured.
Yeah.
And, I quite liked him turning up right at the end of his career for Bournemouth and saving them from relegation, effectively, out of the league.
Yeah, he's just. I remember one of his last. I may even have been his last game. He was scoring, and apologise for the wording here if you're offended, but an absolute thunder bastard.
Yeah.
From 30 yards and just a player who the press made him seem a lot worse than he was.
Yeah. It was he became an easy target, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely. And for me, he's someone who kind of didn't get the love he deserved off the back of it. And also, the thing that didn't help was David Beckham and Steve McManaman.
Well, at 1998, Anderson was the starting left midfielder.
Oh, he was a very Hoddle-esque player.
Yeah. But I think that's basically the end of his sort of career but top flight England career because injuries hit. And we never, it took us to Joe Cole to find another left midfielder. And even then, we found in a left midfielder,
Yeah, we've never really. Whereas now we seem to have no issue at all in finding wingers.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's my one. Shall we go into the centre of midfield?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to give you my first one, which I think you've got. Jack Wilshere.
I haven't got Jack Wilshere. I have got another English player, but because of the way I've interpreted injury prone, I've gone with Owen Hargreaves.
I had Owen Hargreaves as my other centre mid.
I've also gone with another Arsenal player.
Abu Diaby.
No. I love Abu Diaby. Abu Diaby should have been the next Vieira, effectively. But one of my favourite players of all time. But he was so delicate that he must have played a full season twice in his career. That's Thomas Rosicky.
Oh, that's a great shout. That is a great shout because he always seemed to. Yeah, he was always coming back from injury.
Do you remember?
I feel he'd actually fall into both categories here as well because he's. Can you see what he was like at Dortmund?
What he was like for the Czech Republic.
Oh yeah. Euro 2004.
Yeah. They went to the semi-finals.
He was a great player. That Dortmund team that won the. He wasn't a great Dortmund team, but he was the best player he was the best player in a bad Dortmund team.
Yeah. That was basically when they started going broke and needed repairing and stuff like that. But even at Arsenal, do you remember who was the Eduardo when he broke his leg? Horrible challenge. In the same game, or around the same time, Rosicky damaged his Achilles. He had as much time off as Eduardo had to repair like a double fracture, just because his body's so delicate. And it's a shame because when he played, he was wonderful. Really, like a beautiful player.
You look at this man's injury history. So in 13-14, knee injury, 14-15, hamstring injury, 15-16, knee surgery, muscle injury, torn muscle fiber tear, Achilles tendon problem, muscular problems. Yeah, so he's had Achilles tendon surgery. He's just basically his legs gave up on him.
Yeah,
and I agree with you. Do you know what? Yeah,
I was because I one of my favorite players is Cazorla, and I wanted to put in Cazorla, but Cazorla had one huge injury which manifested into many other little injuries, whereas Rosicky was just always injured, and ever since he was a teen he's been having injuries, whereas Cazorla it happened unfortunately when he was like 31.
How the fact that Rosicky had to mention his body in his retirement. After careful consideration, I've realised I'm no longer able to fully prepare my body for what professional football requires.
Sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I totally agree on Hargreaves.
I think for Hargreaves, the one that what really got it for me was the false hope. Was when he joined Man City.
To me, it was well before then, because when he joined Man City, you knew they were taking a risk, but they could afford to make it.
But he scored in his first game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's a beaut.
And when he scored in that first game, you're thinking, oh, God, what have we done? And he's a player who, the 2004 World Cup.
2006.
No,
2006.
2006 World Cup. He was the best player in that squad by a country mile.
Yeah. Yeah, starting as a right back.
He could play anywhere. And I think the other thing with him was that when he came to United, he made us so much better.
He's so dynamic. He makes, he ostensibly he's there to hold it together, but he's so good. But yeah, like he was there. He played the whole game when you beat Chelsea in the Champions League final.
Yeah, it's sad. It's really, really sad.
And it was his second season with you.
He played 27 games for us.
It's sad.
Yes.
And that's when you know about the false hope, because he had the tendonitis, didn't he? And there was a game he was due to play. He was in the starting lineup, and he started the game. Wolverhampton Wanderers. Here you go. He played for 5 minutes. He couldn't. After 5 minutes, he was like, "No, I'm had to leave." And I do wonder, first of all, was it in his head? I don't think, but it obviously wasn't. But Richard Stedman, who's the head of like the guru on knees, was like, "Oh no, you'll be fine." And he just could never come back. It cost England. I think Man United have gone on to do all right, but yeah, I mean technically he won the Premier League with City, but he didn't. But It was a massive shame.
I felt, yeah, he kind of meets both things, doesn't he? In terms of a good player who became injury prone and kind of almost he could have done better.
Yeah.
So, I think you're going to agree with one of my strikers. I think I'm going to have to argue the point for Jack Wilshere.
Oh, I agree. Jack Wilshere. When I lived, as I said before, I lived with Arsenal fans for a long while back when he was coming through the academy, and he was so exciting when he first came through.
But it was the pre-season tournaments, wasn't it? It
Yeah.
was, like the Intercontinental Cup. Watch Arsenal play Slavia Prague live.
The Emirates Cup, I think they have, don't they?
Yeah, there was a pre-season tournament where he just, I can't remember the team they played, but he came in those tournaments. It was fantastic.
Yeah. And Wenger held him back and didn't play and went to Bolton, I think, and did all right.
He went on loan to Bolton and he was great at Bolton. Because that was the Bolton team that had him and Sturridge on loan.
Yeah.
Oh, Daniel Sturridge. God, I forgot about him.
He's good, but he's not going to oust my forwards.
No, me neither.
But it is lost potential as well. Can I also mention Michael Johnson?
The biggest thing that stopped Michael Johnson from reading articles about him and seeing the news coverage, the thing that stopped Michael Johnson was Michael Johnson.
Yeah. But still,
it's the effect injuries have, isn't it, that lead you to do the not so great pursuits.
Yes. But yeah, no. Because I remember hearing stories about Sven would, after games, talk to the press and would be there betting them that, okay, here you go, here's 50 quid. I reckon Michael Johnson is going to be the England captain in X many years.
And when he first came in, he was... Well, he started at Leeds United, didn't he?
Yeah.
But he's someone who, when the first season he came in, he looked phenomenal.
Well, my Liverpool supporting friend told me that he expected him to be the next Steven Gerrard.
Yeah, and that was the comparison that got meant a lot, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Deep Mahaman said he was the player who reminded him most of Ballack.
Yeah, and he played 44 games in his career.
So sad.
In 6 years. But yeah,
but
he's still going. He's still going, isn't he? For West Ham, and now he seems a very West Ham sort of signing, where he's this injury-prone sort of person who.
Hey, you were good elsewhere. Maybe you might be good here.
You were good, but you've fallen on hard times. If he was the player that he was meant to be, Arsenal would not let him go for free. No. But yeah, I think Hargreaves and Vazicki, due to the talent on show and the amount of injuries they had, I think that's fine.
So Michael Johnson would be 31. He's 31. I believe he's 31 years old.
That makes me feel old.
The saddest thing with Michael Johnson for me is looking at some articles, and he was one I'd thought about, but what he was being treated at the Priory, telling the press, and to quote exactly, I'd be grateful if I could now be left alone to live the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Just, yeah, asked to be left alone to live the rest of my life. Just a sad So he's 32. He was 32 in February. But just sad. Really.
It is a sad, but yeah. Well, let's see. So yeah, our midfield of Anderson, Hargreaves, Rosicky, and Weiss.
Correct.
Which is pretty fun. Or for the 4 games a year that they will be together.
Yeah.
So who have you got up front? Because I'm gonna hear neither of mine played in the Premier League.
One of mine did.
Shoot.
So
Who's your foreigner?
Ronaldo. It can't be anyone else. It physically can't be anyone else. What? Just literally just a player. Just you can't argue he didn't have a great career. You know, him at Barcelona was the best striker I've ever seen. You can shove your Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo up your arse. They're not strikers. The best pure striker I've seen. The best centre forward I have seen is that man. And him at the peak of his powers at Inter. I mean, he came back from injury and won the World Cup. But when you see him towards the end of his career at Milan and at Cruzeiro, Flamengo, you think what could have been.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's so sad. It's not sad because he still won a World Cup, he won a Ballon d'Or, but this should have been the man who was basically holding Ballon d'Ors hostage until Lionel Messi came through.
Yeah.
And so he had bad knee injury at Inter Milan, which he recovered from to win the World Cup. 2 bad injuries at Inter Milan, so he came back to recover for the World Cup. AC Milan, another bad knee injury, which cost him basically his career in Europe, and sort of a slightly larger facsimile of Ronaldo turned up playing back in Brazil, who's actually still scored some great goals, but
yeah, that guy who turned up at Real Madrid. All right, that game against United where he scored a hat trick. He was still there. Yeah, he won the league. He was the top scorer in the league, and he won the Liga his first season there. You can't argue he wasn't bad.
Oh no,
but he could have been better.
It's just if El Phenomenon had turned up at Madrid, I mean, then who knows what could have happened? But who have you got playing alongside Ronaldo?
Michael Owen.
I had Michael Owen, and I replaced him because we mentioned injury prone, and I wanted to pick one of my favourite players ever. But let's talk about Michael Owen, because
Michael Owen, much on that theme earlier with the defenders of this guy is going to be the future of football. This is a guy who came in as an 18-year-old, this electric, just this lightning pace, this amazing finishing. This instinctive finishing just seems so different to any other English striker.
Yeah.
He seemed like for me at the time, I was young, I was an early teenager when he was like first around. He seemed different. He seemed like a Italian, Spanish striker. He wasn't this lump up front, which the English players loved, the English teams loved, and he got played too much early on, in my opinion, and his opinion from what I've read. And I feel bad that he had that injury at the World Cup where basically his knee just collapsed.
Yeah. He had horrible hamstring issues, didn't he, throughout his career as a player of pace. And basically, if your hamstrings rupture, effectively what they do is they break, then they reattach to other parts of the leg, and they're never the same again. And basically, that's what happened to him. And he'd lost his pace.
And he's one of those players, this Alan Shearer had the injury, lost his pace, but still had multiple other parts of his game in terms of that thunder bastard of a foot.
Yeah.
Free kick taking, heading, and you couldn't. Owen's game relied on one central element.
Well, he did, but he did change that for England with Rooney. He came back and he could link the play, and he looked like he was getting there. With the early days of Newcastle, and then I think I often think the head went then, especially at Newcastle.
Yeah,
he's happy to collect a paycheck and.
He's come out recently in the past few weeks, hasn't he? Said that he left Real Madrid and was expecting to rejoin Liverpool.
Yeah.
But Newcastle offered double the money Liverpool did. And he had it in his contract that he could every summer he could leave for Liverpool for a set fee. But for me, you just look at some of the career statistics. Like Wayne Rooney's going to retire as a legend of English football, I feel.
Yeah.
And rightly so. Man United's top scorer, England's top scorer. Say what you want about the wasted potential, and this man could have been our Messi, our Ronaldo. That man's had a great career, and still is. Derby became a better team with him playing for them.
Yeah.
But Michael Owen, 89 caps for England, 40 goals.
Yeah, he's not missed, is he? For some reason, he's not. There's no, yeah.
And the season Liverpool won the FA Cup against Arsenal. The Liverpool treble of 2001. 2001, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Michael Owen was just great. That's the Michael Owen that won the Ballon d'Or.
Yeah.
And then when it was the Ballon d'Or, not the best player in the world, it was France football's best player in Europe. But yeah, Michael Owen was one for me that, just in terms of both sides of the stick, a player who was very, very good and was injury prone. And also this kind of, just think of what could have been without that hamstring injury. Where would we have been at the World Cup?
Well, yeah. Especially with the one where he got injured, and I think that later in the tournament, basically we had Owen who was injured off the pitch and Rooney who was injured still on the pitch, and yeah, it's just what it's bad. It was bad.
Yeah, and it's just that there's this reliance on Michael Owen for a while. There's and for me, yeah, he kind of ticks both parts of the thing. I'm interested because you said you said you had two strikers who weren't based in England. So who was your other striker?
I have Roberto Baggio. Had less injury issues than Michael Owen, but was injury prone, especially at the end of his days at Juventus, which meant that they then sold him. He had injury problems at AC Milan,
which has led to them selling him.
It's probably not. He also had injury problems, then later at Inter Milan, but probably different. Once again, he was a person who had niggling injuries, so you couldn't count him for a whole season. But so I think for this theme, I think Owen's a better fit. So I will let Owen be the striker in this injury-prone 11 because he was more injury-prone, and injuries dogged his career more than Baggio, who was a great player who had injuries.
So if we go through this team then,
Yep.
So starting with Matt Murray in goal.
Yep.
Micah Richards.
Yep.
And you have to give me. I haven't actually every time I write down and change it. So you're gonna have to help me with this. So I've just got my team.
Okay.
So Micah Richards right back, left back Luke Shaw, Ledley King, next centre back
Company.
Vincent Company.
Vinny.
Vinny Company.
Yeah.
Sounds like a guy you buy vape juice from. So right mid Darren Anderton, left wing left mid Rocco Moyes.
That sounds rough.
That sounds like a place you buy vape juice from. Marco Royce. Centre mid we have Owen Hargreaves, and the other centre mid being
Thomas
Rosicky. Then up front we have the Brazilian Ronaldo and Michael Owen. Yeah, but if you say Ronaldo, Google Ronaldo. Just Google the word Ronaldo.
I'm not going to, because
and he comes up.
We said from the start that we will always say he is Ronaldo. The other one is Cristiano Ronaldo.
He is Ronaldo, but the problem you have is that some people say the fat Ronaldo, which for me is just awful. That's not. Well, he's overweight now, but
no, but it's fuck them.
Yeah.
So we have up front. We have Michael Owen and Ronaldo.
Correct.
So, if you have any issues with this, of course, get in touch. Otherwise, we'll see you soon for another First 11.
Absolutely.
Until then, good night and stay safe.
And stay away from injuries.
Yes. Yeah. Keep fit.
Absolutely.
Until then. Bye.